Shalom, shalom. So today I'm reading the message, but it's written by Mauricio Quintero. And the name of the portion, as we know, is called Shemot, and it means names. There's an expression, I remember this very well, called Arbeit macht frei, and it means work will make you free. This was a phrase that was above all the concentration camps in the Nazi era. And it was used, this phrase, Arbeit macht frei, work will make you free, was used to oppress the Jewish people, the people of Israel who were living all over Europe. But the bottom line was that Hitler and his henchmen, all those who were with him, didn't seek to merely control the Jews. They wanted to wipe the name of Israel from our collective and historical memory. Now, one of the methods used was to force them to perform meaningless and unnecessary tasks that would slowly take away, erode at their identity and their mission. Now, historically, the books of the Tanakh, Tanakh means Torah, Nevi'im are the prophets, and the Ketuvim, the writings. So these books in Hebrew, they derive their names, such as Shemot, which means names, from the opening words, from the first words in the verse, and they carry meaning. By contrast, Christian theologians later renamed this book Exodus in the Septuagint. They framed it around what they believed to be its primary theme, which was the Exodus from Egypt, the departure, emphasizing the fact that it was an act of leaving Egypt more than understanding about the names. But when they did that, they shifted the focus from names to the event. It seems that nationalism or political power and religion sought to strip the Hebrew sense from Israel's collective history, again, changing the focus from names to events. This is a crucial issue. Throughout the book of Shemot, we find names rich with meaning, symbolic places, individuals with names, but also people who had no names, and they were described only by their function or their position. So this begs the question, what's in a name? What does a name reveal? Why does a name matter? In Hebrew culture, to name is an act of authority inspired by the eternal. God names people directly, as he did with Adam and Abraham. Or he names them through a messenger, like when the angel renamed Jacob, gave him the name Israel. Also parents, father, mother, or both of them together, they name their children, as we saw with Isaac, or the sons of Jacob, and how Joseph named Ephraim and Manasseh. You know, often a name is changed when a person's mission changes. Like Abram became Abraham, and Jacob became Israel. A name reveals something. So what does it reveal? A revelation is not always explicit in the short term. And the function of a name is to exercise personal and collective memory. At the beginning of the parasha, we see that it opens by naming all the sons of Jacob from verses 1 to 6 in the first chapter. Then we read that Shifra, which means the one who beautifies, and Pua, which means to murmur or to speak softly to the baby, they are named in verse 15. We see the origin of the name Moshe or Moses. Moshe in Hebrew means the one who is drawn out, or in Egyptian, it means is born of. That's in chapter 2, verse 10. We see the name Midian, which was called which means a place of judgment. Reuel means a friend of God, or God as a friend. Zipporah means little bird. Gershom means a stranger there. Then we have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, all names given. The name Israel, representing the children of Israel. Yitro, Moses' father-in-law, means the one who adds. And Horeb, the Mount Sinai, means arid or desolate. In other words, the book presents a variety of characters whose names play important roles and are worthy of remembrance. Moses asks the most profound question of all. This is directed to God. What is your name? And the answer he receives is, Echyeh asher echyeh. I will be who I will be. And we hear God ask Moshe, what's in your hand? And he replies, a staff. Later we meet Aaron, which means the exalted one. And Yeter, another name for Yitro, the added one. Again and again, the text introduces us to names, because names are meant to be remembered. And yet, some figures remain deliberately unnamed. Pharaoh has no personal name. Pharaoh's daughter is unnamed here, but later in 1 Chronicles 4, verse 18, we learn that she is called Bitya, meaning the daughter of God, Batya. Most of the midwives remained unnamed except for the two, Shifra and Pua. We also hear of taskmasters and magicians and slaves, all roles, but we don't know their names. This reveals something very profound. A name implies a relationship. You exist because someone is aware of you, and you are aware of yourself. We exist because someone has spoken our name. You know, if you're taking a walk and someone out in the street calls out, hey, you, sir, we don't know whether they, excuse me, whether they mean us. But if they say, hey, Mauricio would turn around immediately because someone is trying to get his attention. What was God's first gift to humanity? Well, in Genesis 2:19 to 20, we read about that he gave us the ability to name. Adam named every living creature. In this portion, Pharaoh deliberately refuses to call those who God had named, Israel. He calls them slaves, to strip them of their humanity. When we remove a person's name, it no longer matters whether they are named John or Peter. They become a number. In my country, El Salvador, during and after the war, we constantly heard phrases like X number of dead, X number of casualties, X number disappeared. For us, it was like saying, today there were 18 dead, tomorrow there will be 50 dead, and the day after 15 dead. This became so common that as a society, we began dehumanizing the victims. This is the same woke mentality that claims that a pregnant woman is carrying a fetus instead of a human being. This language is used to deny their humanity. A name creates a bond. Names acknowledge another person, affirming their value, their place in society, and their dignity. That's why a name stands in direct opposition to slavery. That's important. A name stands in direct opposition to being a slave. In slavery, there are numbers, not souls. There are slaves, not human beings, who have relationships and stories. Slavery produces hard labor and bricks, while a name carries genealogy, collective memory, faces, and stories. That's why the first act of redemption in Shemot is to remember names. Names also reflect position, like Pharaoh and King. These are titles without faces. How tragic that once powerful men in Egyptian society were suddenly deemed unworthy in God's eyes to be remembered by name. They were simply functions, nothing more. Some names reveal tendencies in our nature or in our essence. Jacob depicts heel or supplanter. Laban or Lavan means white. But these tendencies are not their final destinies. Others reveal personality traits, like Miriam, which means bitterness, comes from the root mar, bitter. And Ruth means companion. Other names reveal their mission, like when Abram was changed to Abraham, and Sarai to Sarah, and Jacob to Israel. Another dimension is the name by which heaven knows you. This is when your name truly takes on meaning. Our Rabbi, Rabbi, taught us to take a step back and observe from a distance to get the bigger picture. And as I studied this parasha, I realized something striking. The book begins with human names. It reveals the divine name and ends with a people who bear his divine name. So the Exodus then is not solely about leaving Egypt. It's about recovering or regaining a name. Later, we encounter a spirit that existed both in Pharaoh and in the Third Reich. Exodus 5:9 says, "Make the work heavier, keep them busy, so that they do not speak lies, b'divarei sheker." The goal was to never for them to be productive, nor for the empire to prosper, nor to beautify its cities. Pharaoh's goal was existential. Eradicate their names so that they would stop thinking, speaking, and dreaming. Levanim means bricks, and bricks come from the root lavan, which means white. White leaves no trace. It has no inscription. It has no writing. Each one is the same as the other. They are all uniform, all the same. And in the end, we build something that does not endure, that does not express who we are. It is meaningless words. In the Talmud, both Rashi and Mechilta Rabbi Ishmael interpret b'divrei sheker as devarim betelim, which does not mean gossip or lying words. These words do not serve Pharaoh's system. They eliminate stories of identity and memories that remind us of God's promise. Pharaoh instilled a mindset that unfortunately is still present today. Recently I saw a very sad video explaining why leftist movements need the poor in order to sustain themselves, such as in Cuba, Ecuador, El Salvador, and Mexico, Venezuela, and anywhere in the world where they agree that it's because the poor are given false hope, an illusion that someone is fighting for them, and that they need these corrupt leaders who might redeem them one day, a day that never comes. The day the poor stop being poor is one less leftist, and they lose power. This is exactly the meaning of making bricks, providing slave labor so that we feel grateful to those who give us meaningless work. Never seeing ourselves fulfill the role that God designed in each of our names. This past week, a coworker's 24-year-old son passed away. When I heard the news, I wept for their pain and prayed for comfort. At the funeral, we spoke of the son's life, his name, his dreams, and his achievements. I watched how speaking his name healed something in the father. The photos and the memories around the casket took on meaning. To some, it might have just been a deceased young man lying in a coffin. But to his family, he was a young man whose name they will carry in their memory forever. When Pharaoh, which represents the system, makes us produce bricks, it's not just about working hard. It's about working without purpose. Endless meetings that lead nowhere, bureaucracy, metrics that tell us nothing useful. The system was built to use you, not to give you purpose. Like Pharaoh, it seeks to break the spirit, to give us anonymity, to strip us of the right to be unique in meaning and in purpose. So the question remains, will we be bricks or will we be names? Israel entered Egypt with 70 names, but Pharaoh turned them into a mass of slaves. He called no one by name, not even God. He didn't even know his name. Egypt removes names. God restores them. In fact, in Midian, God calls the Egyptian-raised man by name, Moshe. Moshe. Redemption is personal before it becomes national. For Moses or Moshe, his first step toward redemption was being called by name. The second was this command: remove your sandals from your feet. Footwear disconnects us from the ground, from the earth. Footwear represents learned or inherited customs, identities, defense systems, social roles, or the stories we all tell ourselves about who we are. In Hebrew, foot is regel, and ragil means habit. These are closely related words. Habits are not bad, but they don't serve a higher calling. It is necessary to change how I habitually name myself so that I can hear what God names me. Let me repeat. To hear how God names us, we must stop naming ourselves in the old way, according to our old habits, our old patterns. Shemot is not the story of leaving Egypt. It's the story of recovering the human and divine name in a world that constantly seeks to erase both. You know, that's why Shabbat is so healing for us, because we set the bricks aside to remember our names. This is where we find meaning and purpose in our lives. Shabbat Shalom. Mauricio, thank you so much for that excellent, excellent message. I love how you drew everything together around names. You know, it's interesting because when I first started to go and sing at the hospital over 32 years ago, one of the things I always made an extra effort to do was to learn people's names. Because when you go into a hospital, you become a patient, and sometimes they forget who you are. Like when you go to a doctor, they see you as, an ear or a nose or a heart. They forget that you're a person with a life. And many reasons why we get sick are all due to our emotional state or our our stories tell a big story. And I used to sing to them. So when I got a list of all their names, I would sing, "He's got the whole world. He's got Mauricio and Evelyn in his hand," because our names are so important, which is why I'm pretty sure Hitler gave us a number and put it on our arms instead of a name. When I see people today with tattoos on in the same place that our numbers in the Holocaust were tattooed into our arm, it's shocking to me because it's almost like saying, I'm erasing you from your identity and from who you are. And, the Torah teaches us very clearly not to tattoo ourselves. And it's like when we say a person's name, it's like saying, I see you. I recognize you. You are important to me. I have a relationship with you. And that is so powerful. And I like how you said that, you know, there were people who were named as their titles, like the Pharaoh. We didn't know his name. Only if you did a little research would we find out, because he as a person had no relationship with us and no relationship with our God. So these are, very important things to look at. Thank you for that.
Hello?
Yes, Miriam.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
First of all, everything you said, I totally. The name is such a beautiful relational concept, and it's wonderful. And as you're saying, I just gonna sort of amplify it. I totally get it. During the Holocaust, as you said, we were given numbers. It was and when you see a child, for example, they capture, let's say, a bug or something. A bug we step on, it's just a bug. It's just a part of a collective. It has no name. But when a kid puts a bug in a jar, it becomes, they bestow a name on it. It's almost like what God gives us a name. And this child who's now the protector or whatever of this bug gives it a name. I mean, names make it a relationship. It's such an incredible concept. The same with a dog or a cat or whatever you have as a pet. They are elevated into a special relationship. It's really beautiful. Thank you, Mauricio, for that. It's like so great.
Yeah, that's why people who have flocks of sheep or flocks of cows or cattle that are going to be offered for us to eat, and we thank God for that, but they don't name them. They'll name
No,
yeah, they can name their horse, or they'll name their, as you said, their dogs and cats, but they won't name an animal that they're going to offer up as a sacrifice or as an
right.
offering for us. Yeah, it's
But
true.
giving a name elevates, even a stuffed animal.
Yes.
A stuffed animal is, you buy it from a shelf with a bunch of other stuffed animals, and it's just a stuffed animal. Then you give it to a child, and it becomes alive. You only name something in a relationship. You don't name every stuffed animal on the shelf. You bring it home, and the child gives it a name, and you're in a relationship. So yeah,
Uh-oh.
the ideas of what?
Uh-oh, I didn't name my stuffed animals. I better name them. I guess I don't have a
Yeah.
relationship with them.
Well, you saw. I thought you named the sheep that, not the sheep. What
The
was the toy
lamb.
you got? The lamb.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, I used the lamb chop. That was Sherry Lewis had a little a lamb named Lamb Chop, so I just kept the same name,
well,
but it
but
wasn't my
that
name.
was yeah, but it's still a name.
Yeah, yeah. And the interesting part, like for Jews, when we live in a foreign land, we're often given the names of the land we live in. Like I wondered what Moses's mother or father, I wonder what his name was. There's nowhere that's written, eh, Mauricio? What his parents named him, because the name we know him is by the Egyptian, his adopted mother. We don't know his name. But I was given the name here in Canada, which was a very Western name, Peggy. Peggy. I have a double name, My first name is Gilda, and my second name is Peggy. But my birth certificate says Golda Pesha, which means in Yiddish, I think it's like golden pearl. But I wanted a Hebrew name because that's a Yiddish name. And Pesha in Hebrew means crime. And I didn't want my name to be crime. I'm not a criminal. So I found a Hebrew name. And I didn't like the name for Pearl, which is Penina. It's okay, but I just never liked it. I guess because of the character in the Bible, Penina. I didn't like her name. So I found Batya.
Who's
And it's
Penina in the Who's
Penina.
Penina in the Bible?
Penina was the one with Hannah, who Penina got pregnant and Hannah couldn't, so she would drive her crazy. Yeah, Penina
Oh, okay.
constantly made her jealous. But Batya, I didn't know that Pharaoh's daughter was daughter of God, Batya. Isn't that interesting? Like Bithia that you
Yeah,
said
that
in
is
Second
interesting.
Second Chronicles. That's very interesting. So thank you for that, Mauricio. And I know that you will elaborate because you're excellent at that.
Yeah, you know, I didn't study a lot in this portion because you know you it's like you start to dig, and then you go profound, 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 and then sometimes you lose yourself.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
You have to step back.
yeah, you need to step back, okay, and try to get, because there are so many treasures in everything that is written.
Yes.
But when you step back, then you realize that why God eh, decided to call the name of Shemot instead of Exodus. Okay,
Yetzia.
so
Yeah.
that is the big question, because you know uh, because at the end, probably the theologians, Christian theologians, didn't realize the importance of the name. They realized that what was important was the event of supposedly to get free. Okay,
Right.
to get free, in liberation and freedom, and all these things that today is very popular.
But they were
Okay,
setting them from one slavery into another.
yeah,
Religion is a slavery.
yeah, but today it's very common to hear from both sides, leftists or right persons, to name, oh, we want freedom. Okay,
Right.
freedom to speech, freedom to work, freedom to do whatever we want, etc. But at the end, um, that is not really important to God, because if not, He will start the name of this portion by saying, and God uh, release
That is
or
free. Set free.
yeah, set free, Israel.
Right.
That is the beginning, okay,
Right.
but
Right.
it's not. It starts to 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 express names, to remember who you are, because on Bereshit, the last chapter, they it's like it's linked, because at the end they start to give the genealogy of Israel and the 70 souls getting into Egypt, and then start the book that between Bereshit and Shemot last at least from 80 to 80 or 100 years.
Right.
Okay, so it seems that God is remembering them, who they are. Okay, and probably when a person who starts to read the book, doesn't make sense. Oh, why they start to rename them and start to say, hey, remember, you are the sons of Jacob, and these are the name of Israel and Joseph, etc. And it's interesting that this king did not know, which means he didn't have any relationship. He didn't remember who was Joseph, start to destroy Israel. Um, in the mechanism of Paro still today, okay, because when we read um, in chapter 1, okay, um, in 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 verse 11, they start to say, okay, the names that we remember who they are, okay, they live very well, okay, they prosper, they became rich, they became powerful, okay, and now the Egyptians start to see how God blessed them, and what is the first thing they want to do? To erase their name, okay, and that's exactly what Hitler did. Instead to call us by our names, our genealogies, he put us a number. And then, so the point is, I don't know if the person who is next to me is Peggy. No, she's number 11 or
Right.
number
Right.
23.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
in that, honestly, they humanize the person.
Right.
And then the second ingredient he puts was work, but wordless, I would say, because it doesn't have any meaning. If we go to Bereshit, what God said to Adam, okay, Adam first named the whole animals in all the plants, animals, and whatever. And then you will work on this garden, okay? And it's interesting that God did not, as today I've heard, God did not curse the job, okay?
He didn't
The
curse what?
jobs, you know, to have a labor, to do something, okay, to be useful,
Right.
okay?
No, it's true. He cursed the land.
So yeah,
Yeah.
but people trying to say, oh, um, to have a job is a curse from Adam, okay?
Right.
But that is not true,
No.
okay? That is a blessing, okay? Because what God wanted, okay, we as human, honestly, I've heard this is a Greek person, okay? This guy was like 80 years old. He detected cancer. He was Greek from all these little islands in Greece, okay? And he said, okay, I've been living in United States for I don't know how many years. And then he said, oh, here is very expensive to die. So I returned back to Greece, to my little island in Greece, okay, and have a new life there. The doctor said you will last 3 to 4 months of life. So I returned back. And then this man returned back to Greece. And it's very interesting. He died at 92 or 94 years old.
Believe it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And he didn't die because of cancer.
Right.
Okay. Why? Because he started to work on the land. Okay. He became farmer. Then he started to move again. So all the fat he had
Right.
start to disappear.
Right.
Okay, then he start to eat better.
Right.
Fish, uh, vine from the vineyards of what they could harvest,
Right.
and all this good food, and then he started to have a person's to relationship. Okay,
Right.
again,
That
he
community.
started. He had a community,
Yeah.
so it's like a mechanism
Yeah.
of blessing that God gave us, okay, to rebuild, to reconstruct our body.
Which is what
So
which is what
yeah,
happened with Jacob. It said Jacob planted and God gave him 100-fold. It's up to God.
yeah,
We all
yeah,
plant, but some who aren't blessed will not reap. But the planting is
yeah.
normal. Yes. Beautiful.
And so Adam had a job, and if we realize that,
Yeah.
okay,
He said to tend the
what,
garden.
yeah,
Yeah.
attend the garden,
Yeah.
care of the garden, care of the animals, care
Right.
of everything.
Right.
So, but what the man is making today, people is behind a screen whole day working, receiving
Right.
lights,
Yeah.
stressful of a lot of numbers.
Yes.
When God wants that we move, okay,
Yeah.
because the job that God gave us is to move, to make exercise without
Right.
noticing we are doing exercise because that is good for to our body.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so we are doing completely the opposite. Okay,
Right.
and that is why people is working, but they are sitting behind a desk.
Right.
Okay, the
Yeah.
whole day,
Right.
so they have problems with the back,
Yes.
with system of of the heart,
Right.
bumping,
Right.
etc. So because it's not a job that God planned for humanity.
Right.
He wanted that we build, that we harvest, that we plant, that we move.
Right.
Okay,
And be in the air,
so
the open air.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we are designed not to work on night. Okay, we are
Right.
designed to work when there is a light.
Right.
Okay, sunlight.
Right.
So it seems that yes, humanity believes so always that we are smarter than God.
Yeah.
Okay, and then returning back to what Paro did, something that God sanctifies, like Job. Okay, he took that, and it's very interesting because when you read very slow and carefully, you start to see. Okay, and um and we read chapter 1 verse uh 11, and said they appointed draft officers over them in order to afflict them with shores. In then says to build up Pithom and Ramses, storage cities for Paro. Okay. And this is very interesting because when this kind of draft uh, officers, it doesn't mean it is physical oppression, psychological oppression over them. Okay. In the point is, okay, supposedly show it first, then comes affliction, but here is completely changed the order. First is affliction, and then comes job. Okay, because it says um in order to afflict them with shores. So what is normal? You have a shore, and then you afflict because you are not complete the task. Okay.
Right.
But here comes first the affliction and then the shores. So that means that you are afflicted, even okay. I didn't start to work, and I afflicted already. Okay, so everything is pointing to the soul, to the mind of people. Okay, and it's interesting that God wrote here there is two cities, okay, Piton and Ramses, okay. So because everything is very important in this portion about names, they could say, and they build cities, but now there is a name there, so there is a meaning, right?
Right.
So and so I start to look for what is Python, okay, um, and what is
Ramses.
Ramses, okay, because you know uh, I said what is this important, and Python means the house of Gal Atum. Okay, that is something that is interesting
What
because
was the last words? House of God, a tomb?
Atum. I don't know what God is that. Okay, but they build a house for a Gal, for an Egyptian Gal.
Like
Okay,
a pyramid? Like a tomb? Tomb?
no, it's not like a tomb. That is a city. I believe that is a temple. Okay,
Okay.
for a Gal, which is not God.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
and then um and also piton is pe, mouth,
Mouth.
okay, and tom or tam is swallow, okay, the mouth who swallows, that's or that swallows, okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Right. Right.
so what is doing that the land, this kind of cities they are building, is something that is just to swallow. Okay, and that became everything you swallow, then it succeed like you know um like excrement. Okay, it's
Mm.
useless. Okay, in them Ramses, okay, is
Or,
this is interesting because
or it
that
swallows
words,
or it swallows a
yeah,
people.
or it swallows the people. Okay,
Yeah.
and then comes the other one is Ramses. Ramses is Ra, is the main god of
Right.
Israel, and
Right.
every and Ra is Paro, is the mouth of the god. Okay,
Right.
and then comes
Moses.
again the word Moses.
Moses. Yeah.
Okay, Tutmosis, for example.
Yes.
Tutmosis is Moses is
Right.
born from Tut. Okay,
Right. Right.
but Moses is just named as he built, he born, but it doesn't have any adjective to say to this guy. Okay,
Right.
he could
Right.
be Elohim Moses
Right.
or
Right.
Moselel. Okay,
Right. Right. Right.
okay, you know that is why it's very important that the name Moses. Okay, Tutmosis,
Right.
Ram Moses.
Right.
Okay, so is the son of of this God, which is Ra.
Right.
So at the end, what they were building, something to glorify and to put in high Paro. Okay, that is what they are building, and they were oppressed, making bricks, making everything there. So um, these are not really and it's very interesting that the Torah says the purpose of these cities, okay? Because it says that these were storage cities,
Right.
storage, right? So that is warehouses, but it's not is what they planned probably goes to these cities. All the job they are doing is going to this city, and they are forgetting their job, their that everything they are. Okay, so at the end, okay, is trying to destroy the identity, to destroy what we are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and today, for example, when we have adolescents, kids between 12 to 14 years, is very important the identity of them.
The adolescents. Yeah.
Yeah, because on that age they could forget what who they are.
Right.
Okay. For example, a person who is a thief, okay, today is a thief, but he didn't born as a thief.
Right.
Okay. Suddenly in his life or in her life, uh, they accepted, okay, to be a thief,
Right.
and to be renamed as an honored person becomes to a thief. Okay, so they forgot the identity,
Right.
and they forgot the name. Okay, they forgot who their parents are, or probably who was he called. And then I can see, for example, the gangsters in El Salvador, Mareros. These boys, the very first thing they try to do is to change the face, putting a lot of tattoos, okay, a number 18, 13, MS, you know, they didn't have a name, they have a nicknames,
Right.
and with the nicknames they start to commit, to kill people, to rape people, um, to kidnap people, okay, because they forget who they are,
Right.
they forget their names.
Right.
So when you start to see everything, and it's very interesting also that I would like to add, it says that Sephora was on the well, okay, with a flock, okay, and they were at Midian,
Right.
which is not that is something connected me that connected me that connected me that because who sold Joseph?
Joseph.
Midian. And now
Right.
who is God um, returning back
To the
Moses
well.
to redeem Israel, to
Interesting.
redeem Joseph?
Yeah.
Midian, okay.
Midian. Yes.
In
Yeah.
that's something very interesting because Moses got to Midian, and you can see a picture of Jacob or Isaac with a girl, okay, and that is like you can see that is very similar stories, but it's interesting that it says that the girls, the daughters of Jethro, and that name at that moment is Ruel, okay.
Yeah.
And it's interesting why, because Moses, he was alone, okay, he was between the two worlds, between to be Hebrew and between to be Egyptian, okay.
Right.
So it's very clear that what God sent to Moses during these 40 years, what was? A friend, okay, Ruel, friend of God,
Uh,
okay. And then it says that that the daughters of Jethro, they said, "Oh, we look an Egyptian man." No, there is no name. Oh, we is
Right.
you know they so for God to be called Egyptian, there is no relationship there.
Right.
Okay, and so he was like an Egyptian, and then appears the name of Moses. Okay, Moses, Moses.
Right.
Okay, so so in when we read all of this step by step, then we realize that why it's so important to have a name for God. In I don't know, probably at that moment, you know, I don't believe that they could said, oh, king, or just the name of the position. Paro. No, it should be the name Tutmosis. I don't know, all the Egyptian names, okay? It's like president. No, it's not the same to say President Trump, President Obama, President Clinton, President, I don't know, you know. So it is completely different because you are putting to that position a name. And, but to God was not important. He didn't care who was the name or remember the name of that king. Yes, for the Egyptian, for the Israelites was King XXX, okay? But for the Torah is not important. So can you imagine that at the end, the slaves were remembered by their names
Mm-hmm.
and the king was erased
Right.
from the. So it is not the position, it's about who we are.
Right.
And just to close, and it's very interesting that when God called Moses, he called twice his name. Remember that also happened to Shmuel.
Right.
God called twice.
Right.
Uh, and it's interesting because in, on the first is like Mauricio, but on the other is Mauricio is like uh, to create conscience, to open the mind, to open the hearing, and
Mm-hmm.
then he can respond to that calling.
Mm-hmm.
He say Hineni, okay, and then he start to see a fire that did not consume, okay, on a bush on Sinai, and then uh, he start to come close, and then he hears the voice to say, "Okay, put the sandals,
Take off your
take off
sandals.
your sandals." So, and then we see that he is running to Egypt with the family, and then God tried to kill Moses
Mm-hmm.
because his son was not circumcised.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, s- that really is the God needed to to you know to redeem first Moses, okay, to redeem Israel. So the leader could not be, oh, I am the one who, I know, and then it's like, Nicolas Maduro, sorry to tell you, okay, he was preaching about the poor of Venezuela and he had $10,000 billion. So,
Mm-hmm.
there is no integrity in the speech.
Right.
So God called Moses to have integrity, and then
So,
uh, he,
but Moses himself and his first son Gershon would have been circumcised. Is only the youngest one, Eliezer, right? The second one,
mm, no, it
because there was
says
only
that
one son.
the only Gershom. Okay. And then Sephora circumcised
The youngest
Gershom.
one. I thought it was the youngest.
Let me check. Okay.
Yeah.
Because it's on the seven.
But Moses then would have
Uh,
been circumcised.
yeah. Moses was circumcised.
Yeah.
Remember that.
So he would have circumcised his first son, but they had two sons. And
Yeah.
she only circumcised the one, the second one, I think. I don't think it's
Yeah.
very clear in the explanation. It doesn't say it
Yeah.
directly.
Yeah. Because the baby and Sephora, it doesn't really say the name.
No, it doesn't say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for what I understand is Gershom, because that name means in foreign land, he was given to Moses. Okay.
Okay.
And Eliezer seems that is in yeah, is later that he receives the other son. Okay. But honestly, I will look for that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And the other thing I question, because I seem to remember when Rabbi spoke about that it says Pharaoh didn't know Joseph. The word know, yadat, was a very like intimate term because the Egyptians were very good at keeping records about everything. And it's almost like he didn't want to know the position of Joseph in the history of Egypt because he was now a very nationalist pharaoh, not like the Hyksos pharaoh from before, who himself was a foreigner. This guy didn't want to know him. It's not like he didn't. I don't know if that's really what it says, but anyway, that was just an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I seem to remember him saying,
Yeah, that is true. The word is from Judea,
yeah,
and he didn't know. And, and it's not really that he didn't,
he had never heard of
he
him.
remember, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
but you know how the all the stories were erased in the
yeah,
past.
yeah. They didn't want to know things. You
They
can't.
burn books,
Yeah,
they
took it
throw
out.
it to the, so
Yeah,
that is the way in the past to wipe out people.
yeah. You rewrite history.
Don't, yeah, you write history.
Yeah,
So the story we know today probably is not the truth.
yes, exactly. And there's so many stories that are told today that are just not the truth, and people tend to
Yeah,
believe them. Yeah, yeah. Very exciting, very interesting, beautiful, beautiful. Uh, you know what? I love these stories in the Torah more and more every year. It's amazing how this one book, what other book can we read? Now, how long are we reading in our community since 1993? How many books can we read over and over and over and over and not get tired of them and learn more and see more every single time? The depth of the Torah is absolutely astounding to me and really does change our lives. It has a way of that nothing else has to, as I'm looking at all these things going on in the world right now, and it's just getting crazier and crazier out there. And yet I see how God in my life, He's given me a new name, which is also my reputation. A name is our reputation. And when I was living my old life, I had a different reputation. I didn't always keep my word. I didn't do what I promised. I was not stable. I was so many things that I'm not anymore. Unfortunately, people who know me then, but they don't know me now, they don't know the me that God has renamed, that God has given me a new life. And it just keeps expanding. It just keeps, like, I don't see an end to learning. I feel younger today than I did when I was 30 because I have it opens our, it's like you said, God opened the eyes of Moses. He opened his hearing at the burning bush. And many of us have had a burning bush experience where our eyes were opened. And it's not, there is a bush in the Middle East called senna, and it does have the ability to combust on its own and to keep burning. So the miracle wasn't the burning bush. He says he wanted to go and see because there was something in the burning bush that was causing that. I don't know if it was an angel, I don't know what it was, but it wasn't just the bush. So all of us have seen something that we know continues to guide us. And that's also the beauty of the Torah because it's a continuous process. I was wondering, how is it possible? And you clarified some of this for me, because the affliction came before the chore. Isn't that what you said? The affliction came before the chore. And I'm looking at how was it that all of a sudden this could happen to these people? Because I'm looking at my life here in Canada as a Jew living in a country now that is very anti Semitic, and especially the city that I live in. It's more and more anti Semitism and growing. And the affliction is slowly being placed upon us by law, one law after another, that is taking away my freedom, not only as a Jew, but also as an English speaking person. So slowly I am being afflicted, but because my life is still good, my life is okay, I'm not looking at leaving. But suddenly something could happen, almost that would seem like overnight, and suddenly I'm placed into a slavery. Someone could come and take me and arrest me because of something that I say or that I do, and then I'm given other chores to do. But the affliction doesn't happen overnight. And so we keep questioning, where are we in God's timeline? What can we do about these things that are happening around us? But if we will be afflicted again here in our countries, then God has a reason for that. And he's the only one who'll be able to set us free. Because people ask me, why don't I go back to Israel? Why don't I go live there now? That's my homeland. I don't know. I mean, I have a lot of reasons why I don't, but I guess if God wants me back, he will very clearly show me. Because if we listen, if God did open my ears and I can hear his voice, I believe I will know what to do and when to go. But the Torah explains so much about today that nothing else can. So anyway, again, thank you, Mauricio. I don't know if anybody has anything else that you want to add before we say goodbye. Miriam, I don't know if you do. I put you on mute as you asked me to, so you would have to unmute yourself if there's anything more you want to say.
No, just Shabbat Shalom and Mauricio was really rich message, and pray for my computer.
I will. Definitely, it'll probably work. But also download onto your phone the Zoom application because you
Is there
can.
any special one to download or?
No, the same one is on your computer. Same thing.
No, but I don't know what's on my computer because I haven't
You
looked
just
it up.
go
All
just
I
go
know.
to your just go to your apps on your phone, and there'll be a Zoom app.
So just
We'll
generic.
talk about it afterwards. I'll tell you
Oh,
after.
sorry. Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's okay. Anyway, I want to wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom. Let's continue to grow and to learn how to listen to his voice, that God opens our ears and our eyes of understanding so that we can always be ready in a moment's notice, that when he says time to move, that's when we move. Time to speak, and that's when we speak. So have a wonderful rest of Shabbat.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. God bless you. And we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you, Mauricio.
Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat
everybody.
Shalom. Good week.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.